Hey everybody, it's Jork. Welcome back. Hope you're doing well wherever you are. Today's video, I want to talk about a general question that I ask when I'm talking to people who want a consultation about moving to Portugal. So this video is really about people who are looking to move, or maybe you're in the process of, or you just arrived and you're not quite sure what your goal is, or maybe what your strategy is for being here. And the question that I ask many people is, how long do you plan to be in Portugal? And that may sound like an odd question to ask, but it's one that I try to get information, because knowing and having conversations with your family members that are going to move with you, or friends and family that you're going to be leaving behind in your home country, knowing whether Portugal is a short-term, a medium-term, or a long-term / permanent solution. I'm going to actually have a fourth option in there near the end of the video, is important to know before you get into going through the process of moving to Portugal. Moving to any country, there's lots of obstacles and bureaucracy. Doesn't matter where that is. Some have more, some have less. But it's worth sitting down and talking about, if you move to Portugal, what is the time frame for living in Portugal? How long do you plan to be here? And it could be maybe 1 year to forever, but it's worth going through that. And also maybe asking yourself, and that's not a part of this video, what are some things that will go into changing your mind from a short-term to long-term, medium-term to short-term, long, short, medium, etc. So let's get into it. Many people that I speak to, and when I say many, about a third, are looking for a short-term solution when it comes to Portugal, meaning they're going to be here for a short amount of time. And when I say that, 1 to 3 years. And I'll say truly from an expat perspective, if you want to use that label, it is work-related. So for example, we're here on a work visa. You're going to do a digital nomad, which is relatively new within Europe and within Portugal. So maybe 1, 2, 3 years. You'll do the D7, but you're not necessarily committed to getting citizenship or staying in Portugal a long time. What I've found from most of my calls is this is the first country that someone's moved to. Not for everyone, but the majority. So there's a lot of trepidation, and not many people are willing to jump in the deep end and say it's our forever home. It's more of, it'll be our next home, and we're going to take it 1 year at a time before we continue and say, okay, we're here for a year, we'll stay a couple more. We're here for 3, we'll stay for 3 more. But it's sort of testing the waters and not fully committing to Portugal. And that's not good or bad. It has to be based upon what your appetite is for risk and what your goals are for living in another country. Short term, so about a third of the people happen to talk about the short term end of things and saying, get back to us in a year, 24 months, 36 months. Oddly, when you see many videos that are recent from YouTube-related people like myself, you'll see the arc of, we're moving to Portugal, we've lived in Portugal, and now recently we're leaving Portugal. And so on that arc of the videos, people have asked me or sent emails, so when are you doing your we're leaving Portugal? Because we see a lot of other content creators doing that. Going, we're not. We're tied to a work visa at the moment. If that goes away, meaning the contract ends, because there is an end date, and it's not renewed, then we will look at possibly a D7, which you don't get to convert. You have to start from scratch. Visas don't transfer here. May look at someplace else. We don't know. Hopefully we don't have to have that conversation, although internally, between my wife and I, we've talked about plan B, plan C, plan D. So we've looked at all different options and looked at Portugal as a short-term, a medium, or a long-term, and played out scenarios of all of those. But for a short-term, it's worth it. And I do think you need to be here 2 to 3 years, because from a tax perspective, understanding how taxes are here, also how you may or may not get taxed in your home country, depending on which country you're coming from. It's really important to make sure that you're dedicating, if you're going to make the effort to go through all the paperwork and the hurdles and the obstacles, give yourself at least 2 to 3 years to see if this is really right for you. The next one is, I'll call it medium term. And this is a longer stretch. I'll say 3 to 7 years. Maybe you're doing work visa of some sort, digital nomad, you're doing a D7. You might pursue citizenship. You may consider permanent residency. I will say the people that I've talked to that have this mindset have one or two ways that's going to go. Either they're going to play it out and get citizenship and stay in Portugal if they feel good and they like, the cost of living, and depending on where they're living in Portugal, if this is really for them, they'll pursue citizenship and stay. Or this is what more people have talked about, getting citizenship in Portugal and leaving, moving to another EU country. So once you have that citizenship, you can move about in the EU quite easily. So that is, it seems like, of the people that have connected with me for conversations, the medium-term goal, they're looking to commit enough to Portugal to be able to get, I'll say, the passport or the citizenship. And the reason I say 7 years is, although you can apply for things at 5-year mark, it seems like in speaking to CEF and Portuguese representatives, it's close to a 2-year process in many cases to get citizenship. But then after that, you're going to leave. And there are some people that just recently I spoke to and said, within, let's say, 7 to 10 years, they plan on being in another country, and they also plan on having that Portuguese citizenship as the catalyst to do so. So knowing that, I don't know if that's right or that's wrong, but having an understanding of what your long term is, even though Portugal might be the middle goal for several years, if the permanent destination somewhere else, knowing that, knowing what goes into that and what might change that is important. That's really conversations you need to have with your family members, your loved ones that you're moving with. And then lastly, of the 3 main goals, the long-term goal is 7+ years, let's say, so you get citizenship or you're applying for permanent residence and you are committed to Portugal. That is something that not as many people have, I'll say, talked about, just because, again, 7+ years, it's a long period of time. You don't know what will change in a country. There are people that are moving away from, let's say, their home country for certain reasons, whether it be political, social, financial, and all part of that maybe health care reasons. And in a long term, maybe some of those get adjusted in the home country or previous country where someone may move back over time. But the people that I've talked to that it's Portugal or bust, we're diving into the deep end, we're doing as much research as possible, we're trying to be as informed as possible, but barring some unforeseen major circumstance globally or personally, we're in Portugal. We're gonna be here. May not be in the same location. We may move to different locations in the country, but we're gonna be here. And having that mindset and knowing whether you are short, medium, or long plays into renting versus buying property. Understanding NHR, the tax regime, and does that work and benefit? Is that worthwhile or not? That's something, along with a host of other things, how much paperwork and bureaucracy you want to do for the short term or do it for the long term. Again, those are personal decisions that you have to make. I'm going to throw out a 4th one because of everyone that I've spoken to or has reached out to have a conversation. This is probably more people, maybe 40% of the people I've talked to, it's the highest percentage of people that I've talked to are not looking short, middle, or long term in the, let's say, the strategy for staying in Portugal. It's more permanent, so permanent you would think is long-term, but part-time. So Portugal, they're evaluating the bureaucracy, getting immigration, what visa. More often than not, more recently, and I'll say this particular year, so I'm making this video in 2023, many people, and I'd say the highest percentage of people that I talk to are looking at this, coming 1 or 2 times a year, spending 89 days or less, so that way you're on a tourist, you just have to show your passport, you're in, depending on how you're getting into Portugal. And the clock is ticking before you would need to get a visa of some sort. So you may stay at a hotel, you may stay at a short term like an Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com type of place, or you might buy a place here, but you're only going to be here, let's say, a couple or a few months out of the year. The rest of the time you may turn it into a rental or do something else with the property. But more people are considering that, and that's, again, not good or bad, but it's something to consider as an option. So I'll say you're committing sort of to Portugal. Maybe it's always going to be an annual vacation or holiday place. Maybe you're going to come a couple of times a year when you want to get out of your home country. Or maybe it's part of a bigger plan of we're going to spend a month in Portugal, a month in Spain, and then go home. Or sometime here, other countries or cities within Europe, and then you're going to go back home, wherever home is. So it's worth, the reason I made the video is in a few conversations recently and messages, people were really, they didn't have a plan. Portugal sounds like it's a top retirement destination. It's a great cost of living. It sounds awesome, so we're going to move. And then when I ask, so for how long, some people get upset because they go, well, we're not moving anywhere else. And then when I start pushing back against that, more often than not, it's more of a short term or medium term. Not many are saying, well, regardless of what happens, we're staying. But it's whatever you are looking for. And again, this is not right or wrong, but Portugal offers a lot of options. They offer the benefit of obtaining citizenship much shorter than the majority of other countries in Europe. So you can get that second passport if that's something that you're looking at. Now, the pro and the con is, so Portugal offers that. I don't have statistics on it. I've been trying to research how many people get a passport and leave, meaning how many get a passport and stay. So in some respects, using Portugal to get to your final destination, wherever that is. That's something that you have to consider and think about. Hopefully, if you're looking at Portugal as a destination, that it's more of a permanent destination. If you're investing in Portugal and Portugal's making the investment back, meaning offering citizenship, a 10-year, up to a 10-year deal on a tax break for people that are looking to come and take advantage of the NHR, that you look to stay. But it's up to you, and Portugal allows you to kind of come in and out based upon your situation. So I wanted this video to be out there for people to get thinking about what's your strategy, how long do you plan on being in Portugal, because that helps set up what you're going to do real estate wise, what you'll do with what your current property and financial situation is and health situation is back in your current country as you're watching this video, or other destinations that you may be considering to move to in the future. As always, hopefully this gives you something to think about. If you have any questions about it, please leave them in the comments below. I'm going to be making more videos related to some of the consulting conversations, because I think some of them are a little unique and not a part of some of the videos I've made in the past. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch the video, and enjoy your travels.